Want to start your own podcast, but not sure where to begin? Feeling intimidated with all the technical talk and want some practical, actionable advice? Well, you came to the right place. In this video, I will teach you exactly how to start your very own podcast, including recommended gear for starters and an easy method to publish your new podcast to all the major platforms, such as Spotify and iTunes, completely for free. We do it by using a platform called Buzzsprout. It's an all-in-one solution for storing, organizing, and publishing your podcast without all the technical hustle. But let's start at the very beginning with step number 1, choosing a name for your podcast. Like any naming process, most people tend to overthink this step way too much. Don't spend weeks trying to come up with a clever title. Just go with what feels right for you. The podcast can be called after your own name, like the Joe Rogan Experience, your brand name, like the Smart Passive Income Podcast, or even a completely different variation. Remember that it doesn't have to be a permanent thing. You can always go back and change the name later on, after you have more experience in the podcasting world. Step number 2, audio gear for the new podcaster. Before you can publish a podcast, you need to record one. In order to do that, you must have suitable equipment. And by equipment, I'm mostly talking about one device in particular, and that's a microphone. A podcast is all about the audio. People are going to hear your voice, so it's important you'll have the right tool to make sure the audio is as clear as possible. As it's going to be your first podcast, and we're trying to stay budget-friendly, my first recommendation for you would be to start by using any existing equipment you have. Don't go shopping around for a fancy $500 microphone before you've even recorded a single session. If you don't have any decent microphone already in your house and want to invest a bit in something more professional, I would recommend a microphone like the Blue Yeti. It's a USB microphone that can be plugged directly into your computer and will allow you to start recording immediately without any extra gear. It costs around $130, but it's worth every penny. I left a link to it in the description box below. People like to suggest new podcasters to purchase additional gear, such as an audio interface device and special headphones. But for a new podcaster, that's completely unnecessary. You better dedicate your time and money into producing actual content and figuring out whether this is something you actually enjoy doing. Step number 3, finding a recording software. Armed with your brand new or old microphone, the next step is to download an audio software that will allow you to record your voice and turn it into an audio file. There are plenty of good free software for this kind of task, but I'd personally recommend you to use Audacity. Audacity is an audio recording and editing software that is extremely easy to learn. Seriously, you don't need any prior knowledge in audio production to use Audacity properly. You just need to understand the function of a few buttons and you'll be ready to go. This is how Audacity would look like for you after you'll download it on your computer. Don't get overwhelmed by the number of buttons. Like any simple recording software, clicking on the big red circle will start the recording session. Audacity will keep recording your audio, as you can see by the blue wave that represents your own voice. After you finish the recording, you can stop it by clicking the same red circle or the space button on your keyboard. And that's it. You just recorded your first podcast. Congratulations! Obviously, you might want to do some editing before you go publishing this raw audio file. Audacity allows you to cut any parts of the audio you'd like by marking them and pressing the delete or backspace button, regardless of where this section is located in the audio file. You have the option to control your voice's volume level using the slider at the right side of the screen. Audacity comes with hundreds of different features, which you can learn over time, but those should be suitable enough to produce an actual audio file. After you finish editing, head over to the File section at the top navigation bar and click on Export Audio. My recommended file format for any audio export is MP3. Now that you have the actual audio file of the first episode of your new podcast, it's finally time to move into the 4th step, publishing your podcast, and putting it in front of thousands of potential listeners. Like I've mentioned before, to do it, we'll use a site called Buzzsprout. It's a freemium podcast hosting platform that will take care of everything you need to make your podcast a success. Using Buzzsprout, you can send your podcast episodes to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all other major audio platforms with one single click. It can literally save you countless hours of manual work. Buzzsprout would host your podcast completely free for 90 days, with an upload limit of 2 hours of content each month. This time period will allow you to get into the podcasting hobby without making any financial commitments. If you decide that podcasting is something you want to continue to do, you can upgrade your Buzzsprout account at any point in time to one of their premium plans for a few bucks per month. This upgrade will allow you to host any of your podcasts for unlimited amounts of time, along with other nice perks. To get started with Buzzsprout and follow along with our guide, create a free account using the link in the description box below. After logging in for the first time, you'll be given your very own podcast page where all of your episodes will be featured. To get all of your podcast information updated, go to the podcast settings page. On this page, you can set up the title of your podcast, write a short description, and define a few categories that fit your podcast. Make sure to fill all the other fields as well, including the keywords field, to help people find your podcast in their search queries. Now that your profile is updated with all the relevant information, it's time to upload your podcast audio file into Buzzsprout. Just click on the Upload New Episode button, find the podcast audio file that we recorded earlier on your computer, and Buzzsprout will automatically upload your podcast. On this upload page, you can go ahead and title your new episode, add a good description that fits its topic, as well as a short summary and additional tags. You can even assign it a season and an episode number to make sure everything is organized properly. Now just wait for your podcast to complete the uploading process, and then you can choose whether you'd like to publish it immediately or schedule it for a later date. Now that your podcast episode is published, it'll be available to listen via your own podcast site that Buzzsprout automatically creates for you, as you can see on the screen. But having a podcast website is not always enough nowadays. You want your podcast to be featured on all the other major audio platforms as well, right? To do that, simply head over to the Directions section over here. Clicking on the different directory logos will send you to their dedicated pages with easy-to-follow instructions on submitting your podcast to each of them. The list of available platforms include Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Player FM, and plenty of others. Buzzsprout basically simplifies the whole podcast submission process and helps you do it all from one single place. Lastly, there's one final task you need to handle to ensure your podcast is ready to go, and that's designing a podcast cover. The importance of a good artwork cover can't be underestimated. It plays a huge role in making a positive first impression on potential listeners and can help you stand out from the rest of the competition on crowded platforms such as Spotify and Apple Podcasts. To get some inspiration, head over to the categories that match your podcast topic on the platform of your choice and see what is the standard design and how you can stand out from the crowd using something like a different color scheme. You can create the cover image yourself using a free tool such as Canva, or hire a professional designer to create one for you using sites like Fiverr. I've left a link to both of these sites in the description box. And that's it for this tutorial, folks. I hope you find the content useful, and now it's your time to take action and start working on your first podcast. Good luck!